Okay, it's the month of June, and I should probably make sure I have my monthly upload, or my channel's gonna look like it's dead. Let's see what we got on the chop block. Next episode of the FNAF AU. Wow, I don't have enough footage. Okay. Um, shit. Okay, next video for the Vox series. I also don't have a super ton of footage for that. Shit. I don't have enough random speed paints in my archive. There's gotta be something I can upload. Jeez. Oh. Oh, that old project. Jeez, I was meant to upload that 3 years ago. Oh, wait, no, it's even worse. It's 5 years ago. I was much younger back then, and the editing required would have been too much for me, so better late than ever? Hey guys, and welcome back. Hey, so if you haven't guessed from my little intro, this is a old video concept from a very long time ago that I am lucky enough that I still have the assets for, but never really edited because I was a little kid. Well, maybe not a little kid, I was like a teenager, and the editing skills I had were even worse back then, if you recall. So, since I am kind of behind on some of my stuff because I'm working on other stuff in the background, including getting a job. So let's get into it. This video is about my first ever D&D OC, if you couldn't tell by the title. So this is Rain the Goblin, and as you'll probably notice if you're super familiar with D&D, or at least you're super familiar with like the religious symbols of like the main gods of the game, or at least like the most popular gods of the game. She is currently wearing an amulet that is specifically shaped like the symbol of Corlon, which should make absolutely no sense because Corlon is an exclusively elven god. And that is inherently on purpose because let me tell you the idea behind this first character. So I had watched a bunch of D&D media, and I had learned very quickly that apparently most people's first OCs / player characters were human and fighters because they are the simplest class. So I decided to make that a challenge to myself to make a non-human character, and to pick a race and class combo that I thought was a little bit unusual. So I decided to make a goblin cleric, a good goblin cleric, because I typically don't like the stereotype of one race being exclusively evil, except for fiends, which is their whole effing point. If you want me to go off on that rant, I will do so in a different video when I have some spare footage. So I, being new to D&D and not wanting to make up a new god for my character, had to be creative on what good god to give her. And with the approval of my DM, I came up with this backstory. Rain was basically a forcibly adopted child by a elven. Well, these two are actually twins. But if you're noticing some weird couple vibes, yeah, that was kind of a joke. You know, the really rich white adjacent characters being creepy with each other and having a pseudo child together. Yeah, I teenage me was on something. Background was, in this world, high elves were kind of known for being scummy and enslaving some of the other races around them. Most typically, they would enslave shorter-lived races from their perspective, because what's the harm of enslaving something that doesn't even live that long? And when I mean shorter races, I mean typically humans and goblins. Human slaves are a lot more rare. It was a whole thing. He got approved by the DM, and I was allowed to roll with it. While in this situation, Rain was taught about elven religion and became very devout to the elven god, even though he would typically not accept such a worshiper, but I decided to write that Corlon was so disgusted with the elves at the time and their shitty behavior that he actually let a goblin be a cleric of his just to prove a point that he'd rather make a goblin one of his clerics than some of the elves he's been forced to deal with. So, yeah, Corlon's even more disappointed in his elves in this time around. So you're probably wondering at this point, how well did that campaign go? And to answer that question, oh, God. To put it nicely, that campaign fell apart real fast, but not for, in-universe reasons. No. But I was determined to use this character, so I ended up joining a different campaign ran by my high school, specifically in D&D club. And yeah, I ran it by the DM, and they were approving of the same character concept. And before I get started, I will say that although this character concept is kinda edgy, I will say that it's not a necessarily bad idea. It's just that perhaps a teenager, a very sheltered one, isn't the best person to be playing such a complex character. I will say at least that she isn't super emo about it. She just has a really bad case of Stockholm syndrome, and although she knows that these elves are not her parents, she still thinks very highly of them, and the whole point of the campaign is that she's supposed to slowly but surely realize that her childhood sucked and try to carve out a real life for herself. Anyways, so how did the second campaign go? Well, canonically starts the same way as the first one, where Rain is living with her adoptive parentheses family, more like child kidnapping family. And until one day, she gets a vision from Corlon saying, "Hey, I want you to go around because I think I need you to help prove a point." But obviously in a more godly way, of course. But she's super hyped, but her adoptive parents, we're going with that, don't believe her until they themselves get a vision while trancing, telling them that no, she is completely right. You have to let her go and do things. Yeah, super vague. I was trying to leave it up to the DM what the mission was. I had an idea in mind what I wanted to do, but I wasn't sure how much the DM wanted to go with that idea. Anyways, point is, there she is, finally free from her plantation for the first time in her entire life, and she is ready to set off on her first ever journey. Rain, the naive, sheltered, and canonically, quite literally the world's most adorable goblin, considering that canonically they are scrunkly, if they are very scrunkly at best. Basically, canonically, she has the facial proportions of like a 10-year-old child, despite being a full-grown woman. Well, full-grown goblin. So, how well does this journey go? Well, in the second campaign, as she is wandering around the forest, going about her merry way, trying to imagine the amazing quest that she's been sent on by her beloved god, unbeknownst to her, something else was in that forest with her, which, to put it nicely, quickly overpowered her to the point that she didn't even get a good look at what it was. Next thing she knows, she's in a burlap sack with a bunch of other people who are stuck in there, whining and shaking around trying to get out. But for some reason, despite being decently strong warriors that should be able to rip out of these sacks, they physically cannot. I would learn later that the intention was that the sacks were being reinforced by powerful magic, but in character, we never figure that out. Okay, for this next section, you're in for a little treat, as we're going to delve into what happened next in the character's actual perspective. So, it's not just a boring slideshow with really old art that was partially traced off of stock images, because I was not confident back then, and I'm more than willing to admit that that's why the elves look weirdly uncanny and why someone's going to look really derpy. But honestly, I do not regret what this guy's gonna look like next. eyes are dilating. Hello? Hello? Little one? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Oh, wait. I think you're coming too. Come on. I just want to talk.
What? Oh, a bird?
There you go, and look at you go. Oh, goody, you're awake. Oh, finally, the others were waiting for you. I was worried I might have been a bit too rough grabbing you.
Others? Right. The sacks, the other people, they're... where am I?
And then after that point, my character was then introduced to the rest of the party. Yes, remember these guys in the sacks? Well, these are the party members. Instead of meeting in a tavern, we were meeting in a sack. Let's start off with this lovely lady, Cassandra, our warlock and party face / party mom. Party mom, as that's what the player wanted to play her as. It is at this point I should mention that outside of remembering that they went to high school with me, I don't remember the faces of these people very well. Moving along to the next character, Yoko, our king gunslinging Aussie fighter. Yes, that is a mouthful. Yes, he was a homebrew race. Yes, he was a cat boy. I think his stats were based off of a tabaxi, however. He just aesthetically was a cat boy. Or cat man, because he was a whole ass dude. I think if I remember him correctly, imagine Wolverine if he was less of an asshole. Next up, and the of our biggest problem in the campaign, repeat classes. Nothing wrong with that, just this is Corey. She was our second fighter. She came with an animal sidekick named Scarlet that she was allowed to have. She's a big sweetheart, definitely a Karlach vibe if you played Baldur's Gate free. I actually remembered her backstory. She escaped slavery, but unlike Rain, had a very different experience, a particularly terrible experience. Scarlet basically functioned as her emotional support animal, and she would talk to it constantly for emotional support, and she's a Dragonborn. I don't draw a lot of Dragonborns, because I suck at animals. Next up is our second cleric of the campaign, and ironically, smaller than the goblin. This is Plato. I have no idea how to pronounce that last name. I just had it written down. And they are I think they use they, them pronouns, and that's as far as I think I know what they are. Don't ask me what they're supposed to be. They were a homebrew race of who knows what origins. If you remember Chowder from the show Chowder, where it's just like they're a thing, that is probably the best description of what they were. I remember they were black, fuzzy, had red eyes, and antenna. I have no idea what they were supposed to be beyond that. And lastly, moving on to our pretty much last character from the main group, Faith, the high elf life cleric, and her animal companion, Bobby, the vulture. That name is still funny to me. From what I remember specifically, she is a highly eccentric nun character who plays the whole nun thing to its comedic high point, but at the same time, she's like not a slutty nun. She's like very conservative. I think she's supposed to be like a conservative stereotype, but at the same time, I don't think that she ever went too far, at least as far as we got in the campaign. So at this point, you're probably wondering, why did this little old kinku kidnap the party in a sack? I mean, that's definitely what the party was asking him when they first woke up. And the answer is actually rather funny. You see, he just wanted to send them off on a quest together. Yeah. After being quickly asked why he couldn't have just walked up to them or send them a formal invitation because he turns out to be the mayor of this town, his only response is, "You know, I never thought of that. Woohoo, woohoo, woo."
Orlan, give me strength. Oh.
Out of character was confused, baffled, and just lost after hearing that. It's a bit of an understatement, but eventually they managed to get themselves together enough to agree to the task at hand, which I don't remember anymore. What I do remember, the mayor did a funny little dance for the group before they all sort of headed off on their journey, on their big campaign-wide quest, which I don't remember anymore because, oh, time zero, haha. Yeah, if you haven't guessed by now, this is the part where I tell you all the fun mischief that my friends and I did on this epic adventure. And this is also the part where I tell you that this campaign started a few months into 2019. And you can probably guess what murdered this campaign. I guess if there's any moral to the story, it's no matter how cool a campaign idea is, no matter how cool your characters are, real life can always get in the way of fun. And this video is more of me practicing my editing skills and my abilities so that I can make more interesting content later, which is why I'm using a bunch of old art and assets. Am I missing anything? Oh, there was actually one more character who joined in later, but I literally forgot what his name is, but he was another fighter. So there were free fighters and free clerics. Oh boy. Anyways, see you next time. Bye bye.